One of the worst days in the life of this morning's guest happened in a courtroom. Something happened on that same day in the same courtroom that made it the best day of his life. Find out what it's all about and meet local attorney Russell Mace. Coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at Myrtle Beach Lighting, the lighting store of the year. We're focused on representing our local veterans in the legal system. And we're visiting with Russell Mace, a local attorney. Good morning, Russell.
Good morning, Greg.
Thanks so much for coming in this morning.
My pleasure.
Great opportunity to get you in. Have you ever been in Myrtle Beach Lighting before?
No, I haven't, but it looks like a very, very nice store.
It is. They were kind enough to let us in a little early this morning before they open up. They've still got some folks popping on by, which is great.
I see that.
It's a tremendous location, easy to find, and not too far from your office.
My office is right down the street.
On the former Air Force Base.
That's correct.
What a great opportunity to think about serving area veterans being right there on the former Air Base. Have you enjoyed it out there?
Yeah, we're right next to the VA, actually.
Is that right?
That's right.
Very easy to find.
Yes.
Are you originally from the area, Russell?
No, I'm originally from Georgia.
Okay.
I grew up in Georgia until I was about 25 and then moved to Miami, Florida in 1995 and practiced law in Miami for about 10 years before we opened an office in Georgia, and then we just opened the office here in Myrtle Beach in January of this year.
Is that right? So you're traveling to Georgia and back down to Miami?
Travel all the time.
Wow, Russell. And of course you're close to the airport as well.
It's very convenient.
Which is great, yes, yes. What practice do you, what type of law do you specialize?
In Miami, where my other office is, we specialize in federal criminal defense and state criminal defense. Mm-hmm. And my wife's also an attorney, and she specializes in appeals. But since we've come up to Myrtle Beach, there's no federal court in Myrtle Beach, and we have to travel to Florence and Charleston. So we've broadened our practice into doing several different areas of law. Mm-hmm. My wife does some family law. I also do some injury work and contract work. And one of the reasons we're here today is to talk about the work we're going to do for the veterans.
Yes.
Now, we haven't started the work for the veterans yet because we're actually on a waiting list of attorneys that are waiting.
Attorneys that are waiting for?
We're waiting to get trained. There's actually a training class in Washington, D.C., and they offer it twice a year, and they may expand it because so many lawyers want to do it now to represent the veterans for free when it comes to their VA benefits.
Uh-huh. That's a tremendous service. Representing veterans for free?
For free.
Wow. You've got some time on your hands. That's a big deal, or that's just a service focus of your firm?
Yeah, that's just trying to give back to the veterans.
Right.
And most of the larger firms in the country are setting up to have their partners and some of their associates get this training, because in every city in this country, veterans are coming back from the Iraq War, and they need help, whether they're 19 years old or whether they're 55 or 60 years old,
Sure.
Going through the red tape with the VA.
Right.
I mean, some of them maybe they do have a law degree, but even me with a law degree and spending years practicing, this paperwork's not easy. And anybody that's dealt with the federal government knows it's hard to get everything right, and it's very easy for some of your benefits to be denied. There was a case that actually prompted us to get involved in this. There was a young man that came back from Iraq, and he had his leg blown off while he's in Iraq, and the VA said it wasn't related to combat. And they denied his benefits. And he's like 20 years old trying to figure out, how am I going to go through this process?
Right.
He's got a young wife. They're struggling, and here he has gone off and served his country, comes back, and the very government that sent him over there is now saying, we don't think your missing leg is part of war. So that kind of prompted myself and my wife and some of our friends to say, how can we help these guys out?
Good for you. That's tremendous. What was the ultimate resolution on that? Is it still being
that case,
right.
we read about the case in the New York Times.
Right.
And I think he was in Oklahoma, if I'm not mistaken. And so I don't know what the final outcome was.
I'd be interested to hear, because ultimately you can't imagine how they would take a stance like that.
We've heard other stories too.
Right.
We've heard other stories
Do you
too.
have veterans in your family, or was it really just reading about that case?
I'm actually the only male in my family not to go to war for our country.
Is that right?
Yeah, my grandfather was in World War II, and my father was in Vietnam. So
the love of the law is what spurred you to, what kept you out of that, getting into the legal practice, or?
No, I guess when I was in college, there was really no major conflict going on, and by the time we got involved with 9/11, I would think I was already too old to be accepted into anything. But it was definitely something that crossed my mind, and I had very seriously considered joining up after 9/11. But the reality of it was they were not taking somebody in their mid-30s at that point.
Yes. Son of a gun, Russell. Now, your wife, you said she practices family law. Is that mostly here in the area, or is she down in Miami as well?
No, she mainly stays here,
Okay.
but she also travels around the country for certain cases, as I do. And her big focus, she writes appeals to the 4th Circuit in Richmond, to the Supreme Court, and to the 11th Circuit in Atlanta. But big focus here is on state appeals, and she also does some criminal work.
What spurred you to go into the legal profession, Russell?
I would say a desire for more education. After I got my undergraduate degree, I got a master's degree, and then I decided to go a little bit further, and I was either going to get my PhD and try to teach at a college or go to law school. And so during that time, I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life, as many people, I'm sure, have had that decision.
Early, mid-20s, sure.
And the opportunity to go to law school came along, and then I thought to myself, let me get out of, I was living in a very small town in Valdosta. I mean, the town's Valdosta, Georgia. It's very small.
Right.
Compared to Myrtle Beach, it's even smaller. And I had the opportunity to go to work in Miami, and I said, let me take that opportunity, and it was being a lawyer. So I went down there and became a public defender for 4 years.
Is that right? Good for you.
And so that was not an easy job by any means. Most of my clients didn't speak English. And
what was their native language? Was that
Spanish.
Hispanic? I mean Spanish.
Yes.
That's fascinating. Did you ever pick up Spanish, or?
A little bit, But I've noticed here the Spanish I picked up is from a Cuban origin, and the Spanish in this area of the country is a Mexican Spanish, and the dialect is very different. I was in federal court in Charleston this week, representing a Mexican national, and when I spoke to him in Spanish, he understood about half of what I said, and I understood about half of what he said.
Really?
And I thought maybe my Spanish was off, and then the court interpreter came in, and she is actually a Spanish instructor, and she had a hard time communicating because it wasn't, what they call Castellano Spanish, which is from Spain.
Castilian, that's right.
There was a varying degree of interpretation between her Spanish, his Spanish, and my Spanish.
Very interesting. Yes. Well, and I'm sure that happens on a regular basis as you think through the number of obviously the growing Hispanic community in the U.S. and as it infiltrates communities. Obviously, that could really vary. The class there, it's taught in D.C., or do you all have to travel up there? The veterans, getting back to the veterans push.
Right. And this is the one problem with this is they only teach the class in D.C.
Okay.
Previously, they said if we got enough people together, they would come to a location. But it's been very hard for us to get other lawyers in this area, and D.C. is about an 8-hour drive from here, and so we haven't pushed to try to get the class moved.
Right.
And the last class was in April. We were put on the wait list then, and now we're on the wait list, and they haven't even scheduled the next class. They fill the class up immediately, and last time I spoke to the administration up there, I think there were 18 lawyers on the waiting list.
Is that right?
Right.
18 attorneys on the waiting list.
And the agreement is everybody going to this, everybody going to this training for the veterans, everybody's agreeing to do these cases for free. None of the lawyers are doing these cases to bill the government. This is all just to help the veterans.
That's a tremendous service, Russell. And your wife plans on doing the same. Do you all plan on taking the course together?
Yes.
That is great. That is great. As you travel around and think about the opportunity to serve veterans, clearly their needs would vary from person to person, and it could be as basic as just some basic filings or otherwise to something like the example you read there in the New York Times. Sure, you're looking at the ability to represent based off of your skill set from doing work down in Miami as well as in Georgia, now here in Myrtle Beach.
Yeah, I think we can do a pretty good job for them.
Yeah. And your wife, she's been practicing did y'all meet down in Miami or up here?
We actually met in court.
Oh, really?
We met in court, and it was a rough day for me.
Oh, yeah. Let's hear about that. You remember it vividly?
I remember it vividly. I had a client that had missed court, and we had made arrangements with the prosecutor to let my client come in and make a deal and leave. And the judge on this particular day had other plans, and he took my client into custody.
Oh, no.
And I had a witness there to testify why he missed court. It was a mess up in the mail, 2 roommates living together, one threw the notice away. And the judge just did not want to hear it. And I felt so bad for my client because I had told him, listen, I already made a deal with the prosecutor. You're fine. You're going to go to court, and you're going to leave, and we're going to resolve it. And I walked in. I saw my wife. She's a very attractive woman.
I saw my wife, yeah.
Yeah. Not my wife at that time.
Right.
I was like, oh, it's a very pretty girl over there. And I said, talked to my client. I said, don't worry about it. Everything's going to be fine. Right. About 30 seconds later, they're putting handcuffs on my client and putting him in a box. And I said, whoa, judge. We're jumping the gun here. We're jumping the gun. The judge and I proceeded to get into a very acrimonious conversation.
They're in open court?
In open court.
Oh, boy, Russell.
And started going toe-to-toe. And I ended up leaving the courtroom. I left the courtroom, and I kind of stormed out of the courtroom. I was so mad that my client, I felt so bad for my client because I had told him, we come back, the judge tells us we're going to come back and hear the case in a week. So my client's going to sit in jail for a full week for a very small charge.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up leaving the courthouse. I called another lawyer, and we're talking. He goes, Russ, cool off. He goes, go back to court, ask to go sidebar with the judge, and talk to him. So I went back. I'd cooled off. My future wife's still there. And I went sidebar. I talked to the judge. I said, Judge, sorry I lost my cool.
Right.
But I had told my client the following things. And the judge had calmed down. And he goes, okay, bring him back. And they let him out.
That's tremendous.
And so I saw my future wife, and I was talking, and I was like, hey, see, I won this. and she started laughing, and I gave her my business card, and I said, hey, if you'd like to go out to dinner sometime.
Oh, wow.
And then I intentionally came back to that courtroom a couple more times.
Uh-huh.
And we eventually went out to dinner.
Good for you. That's tremendous. And you all have been married how long?
Just over a year.
Is that right? Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's exciting. That's exciting. How about some exciting cases practicing down in Miami? I'm sure in a hotbed like that, we think about Miami Vice or CSI Miami. Is Miami at all like what we'd see on TV? For viewers who may not, or viewers in the PD or southeastern North Carolina, or even viewers down here on the Strand who may not have visited Miami or Miami Beach.
Miami can be much more than what you see on TV.
Oh.
The level of crime is very different than what we have in the whole state of South Carolina.
In what way?
It's much more organized. A lot of people that get arrested in South Carolina, many of them, they don't even realize they're breaking the law.